Welcome to the pharmaphorum podcast. This is web editor Nicole Raleigh, and today I have with me Rob Verheul, CEO at Graphite Digital, a digital strategy and design partner company for health and pharma. A pleasure to speak with you again, Rob.
Fantastic to see you, Nicole. Thank you so much for having me on.
So recently we heard that Takeda had chosen Salesforce over Veeva, and Graphite Digital's latest report, the Digital Reality Check, has shown that Takeda are not the only pharma leaders selecting Salesforce, with 66% of companies doing the same. Before we dive into this topic though, Rob, and you know where I'm going next, perhaps you could share with listeners, especially those listeners who haven't caught you on this podcast before, a little bit more about yourself and the journey that has led you to doing what you do today at Graphite Digital.
With pleasure. It's great to speak to you again. So I'm Rob, CEO of Graphite Digital. We're a digital experience agency exclusively supporting the health and life sciences industries. Having worked in the sector for 16 years, we still see tremendous opportunity here. And often companies think technology first, but we recognize the need for a human-centric approach to make the experiences and the internal working approaches really work for people. What that means is day to day, we help global teams to raise the standards of their digital interactions by defining UX and UI globally in design systems to enable that global consistency. And we create desirable and effective websites and apps, always with that user-centric approach, and also help organizations innovate into the art of the possible as things continue to change and consumer demand changes. How can we continually stay ahead? And that's what we are working on day to day with our customers. And it's been a pleasure to do that for 16 years and to see the trends moving forward. And I suppose we're here today to talk about trends once again.
Exactly. Thank you for that, Rob. And as you say, 16 years, there's a flow there of trends up and down. So let's turn now to the Graphite Digital report that was recently released. It's a study of 100 senior pharma leaders across Europe and North America investigating organizations' attitudes towards industry hot topics or trends, as Rob termed them a moment ago, including AI, omnichannel, and globalisation. So perhaps to start with, let's channel a little bit down further into these, Rob. Where do you want to start? AI, omnichannel, or globalisation?
Well, yes, this is our fourth annual report, and we've got lots of data points across a number of different topics, but it'd be hard to ignore AI, which is obviously a hot topic that most people are interested in, either in a professional or a personal level. And, our report this year is, the digital reality check. And we wanted to go beyond and see what people are actually doing. We discovered that actually 13% of pharma leaders felt their organization is very prepared for AI adoption when it comes to digital experience. That was actually higher than I expected. It feels like pharma has a number of challenges to grapple with as it becomes very prepared for this era we're in. 72% agreed that data privacy and security risks are the biggest barrier. And it rings true, particularly when we consider the legacy systems, compliance restrictions, and lack of in-house expertise. There's plenty of things to grapple with, but of course, the code and data protection are paramount as it moves forward in this new era with AI. And we see that the AI investment intentions, reflect a desire to accelerate that progress. So obviously there's a lot of data-driven insights and analytics, taking 68% of our audience saying that was a priority for them. Digital marketing advertising, 66%, and then content creation in 62%. So many are investing in the delivery elements of their customer experience, such as that customer engagement and support, but only 26% are focusing on UX and digital design, which suggests some untapped potential there.
So I want to focus on that untapped potential for a second. So a sort of theme that's coming across today with customer centricity, etc., is this change in demand. And thinking about that 13% who thought that their workforce was very much prepared for AI to be fully implemented within the organization. To what extent, Rob, in your opinion, is behavior change still an issue when it comes to AI implementation within life sciences companies?
I think behavior change is the key question there. It's very easy or relatively easy for an organization to procure a technology stack and start to implement it. But actually, it's not until the team, the staff around the world begin to use it and get that value from it, do we actually see organizational transformation or the fruit of the usage of that tool. And I think with certain tools they can roll them out across the business and they give ChatGPT like capabilities to support their team in creation of content, for example, presentations or whatever it needs to be. But actually going deeper, what is the organization actually getting value from? Well, we're seeing quite a lot of different investment across the board, but in reality, it's got to be used by people and benefits have to be found in each department, and that might take a longer term approach, really.
Thank you, Rob. So, if we focus on this value factor and perhaps the original thoughts around AI, which was very sort of labeling it a hype, something else that has very much been labeled hypish, if you will, permit me that word, has been omnichannel. Everyone seemed to jump on the bandwagon of omnichannel and indeed still are hopping on and off. So, perhaps you could broach that trend that has been reported upon within the report this year.
Yes, omnichannel, surfaced a few years ago now as perhaps the route forward for all organizations. And prior to that was multi-channel, and we see these terms banded around and in themselves, they're not the wrong things to do. They are, the contemporary view, the mindset about how we can further our customer engagement and our customer experience. This year with omnichannel was an interesting one. We came back to it for the third time, and actually 11% of our audience said felt that they were leading fully optimized, dynamic, and insight-led, and 50% said advanced, so well-connected, data-driven, and consistent, and the remaining were developing or emerging or basic. And which was the headlines there are quite encouraging. People feel like they're making progress, but some of the comments around it though made it feel like maybe this wasn't entirely the case. There was some comments around there not being a clear roadmap for omnichannel evolution. There was an absence of an omnichannel culture, and actually that insights from one channel are not applied well to improve the others. And unless you are doing that, you can't really deliver on the omnichannel promise. And so it seems like the industry is still struggling to a degree with operationalizing these great processes and ideals. And that's probably due to, the usual challenge of siloed teams and, not necessarily operating enough. And that's a factor of the scale, but it's something we've seen consistently for the last 10 years. But yeah, so there's a mixed outlook there, but encouraging that people at least self-assess as leading and advanced more so than they were.
Exactly. So if we take that notion of needing aligned insights across channels and going towards this sort of streamlining personalization, if you will, this takes us to the third trend I mentioned earlier, which is globalization. So tell us about globalization and the reasons perhaps for the focus by pharma in the report.
Yes, well, globalization is a particularly interesting conversation point in digital, and we'll talk a little bit about the different technologies and approaches that are being rolled out in this space. But we're seeing a trend towards it particularly when it comes to websites. Actually, those for the last few years have been mostly decentralized, and actually brand teams have launched them as part of the process of launching a brand locally. But actually now we're 20 years into the digital revolution. We see that there are many websites, some of them legacy, or in fact many of them legacy and not used. And so there's a bit of a question mark around how to move this forward. And actually globalization, particularly around digital channels and digital experience, is becoming a bit of a trend, and one where we in particular we're seeing that actually companies want to reduce the cost of that implementation and increase the effectiveness. And with globalized tools and approaches, we can certainly do that.
Thank you, Rob. So, for listeners, we laid a little bit of a background stage setting, if you will, for our discussion, our central discussion today of the upcoming Salesforce-Veeva split. But I just want to hone into a key theme. You mentioned a moment ago that we're now 20 years into a digital revolution. And indeed, when you were discussing AI, you mentioned we're at that point of a digital reality check. So, this might bear some weight upon our central topic today. So that Salesforce-Veeva split is scheduled for September 2025, so not long from today, 1st of July, and it marks a pivotal moment in pharma companies' digital strategy. So this is prompting many organizations to reevaluate how effectively their tools, their channels, and data work together to serve customers. As you said, Rob, it's customer centricity all the way at the moment. So can you perhaps explain the whys and the wherefores on a more nuanced level when it comes to the split?
Of course, I'll do my best. So everyone has heard of Viva and Salesforce. And yes, after 15 years, Viva Systems is not renewing its partnership with Salesforce, on which its technology stack, particularly for CRM, was built. Now, we can't forget that both vendors offer a lot of different solutions. And so we are just talking about the CRM component, which is the customer relationship management as that focal point. But the fact that they're separating those technologies and then marketing them independently is a big move, and actually forces that bit of a consideration moment about what route the pharma organizations want to take. And crucially, when it comes to customer relationship management, that tool that your sales forces are dealing and using with every day, and the one where your data is housed and actioned as well, it's a big question and a big consideration for them. So this really is not only asking them to consider what features are on offer now, but what features are they going to be buying into in the roadmap of that future direction. So the data that we're seeing is 66% have opted for Salesforce, and that's what our respondents came back with out of the 100 that we interviewed in different brands. Now, it is early days and numbers might shift, but assuming that's a trend, it would seem that more decision makers are buying into that Salesforce brand as one that can deliver that CRM, and particularly when it comes to AI, that future for CRM. And obviously Salesforce as a brand which leads in the consumer space has really capitalized on that moment. Now, it remains to be seen what delivers the most impact in the medium term, as customers are just starting to onboard now, and we will see where all that goes. But it was interesting to us actually that 0 interviewees suggested another option. And so it does actually strike me that there is a huge opportunity here for disruption if either vendor fails to deliver on those promises. But yes, we will wait and see.
Gosh, that is surprising. That 0% suggesting another option. Perhaps if you're listening out there, will you be the disruptor? So let's come back to this notion, Rob, of road mapping. And we've been discussing AI, omnichannel, globalisation, etc. However, without clear measurement frameworks and integrated platforms like CRM to connect insights and orchestrate action, the value, that important word as ever within life sciences, the value of these initiatives risks being lost. So what are your thoughts there, Rob?
We see that pharma often invests in the best-in-class technology products with the world-class vendors. And where it's struggled in the past, there is configuring those systems optimally and enabling those teams to work with the systems, and then tracking the things that make a difference most. Everybody has their own view of what they should measure. We hear measure what matters. What really matters to you as an organization will depend upon which part you are. And actually, our view is that almost chief amongst all is that customer experience, and how do we align the objectives of the organization with those of what the customer needs. And as part of this challenge, of rolling out these technologies, is the scale and also the pace. There's always urgency to deploy to a huge population of people, but if those systems are hard to use or the teams are not ready to use them, then utilization will be low and ultimately effectiveness too. So it is a complicated matter for organizations to be considering and choosing and then aligning those tools around the measures that really make the difference.
Yes, so let's tunnel down into those measures for a second. The report found that while 59% of organizations track regulatory compliance and 51% focus on engagement metrics, fewer are measuring, as has been the important focus today, customer satisfaction, only 42%. And indeed, only 29% are forming digital strategies based on that first-hand customer research. And this means, as you said a moment ago when it came to effectiveness, Rob, that efforts may not result in products and services that meet patient and HCP needs. So you stated also a moment ago, measure what matters. Can you explain further for us why these percentages and these efforts may not result is efficacious?
Yes. So looking at what matters to the organization, it depends on who we ask, right? But we were surprised that in the creation of digital strategies and in considering the metrics that are most appropriate for that, 70% said regulatory and compliance requirements. In fact, the most popular answer was the unifying theme of what people were saying. Now, it makes sense, of course. We have to have and create compliant solutions when it comes to creating those digital experiences. But it was surprising that actually it wasn't more customer-centric, first-hand customer research that was a little bit higher when it was really investing in that first-party research to help define their decision-making. And it speaks to the challenge of the industry, which continues. Everything has to be compliant, but we want to create the most valuable experience for our customers. And yeah, it remains a difficult challenge and something to wrestle with, and in fact, a creative constraint, I suppose, in creation of those solutions.
Thank you, Rob. So my final question, all this we've been discussing today considered, what is Graphite Digital's projection for industry in this regard, in totality, in the near future?
It's a great question, Nicole, and I think about that a great deal. And now, overall, when we look at the report, while some of the data points could be perceived as negative, and we feel the industry remains ambitious, actually, that it sees a lot of opportunity here. And we share that too. And I think what we'll see in the coming years is a few things emerging. We touched upon centralization, perhaps a consolidation of some of those digital channels and experiences, and a move to centralize some of those by defining what works well, and then rolling that out across brands and realizing the economies of scale there, rather than letting all the brand teams define those and build those back into the overall ecosystem. Within that, when we see those economies of scale, there's more of an opportunity to create more adaptive, personalized experiences with AI supporting the content creation and the coordination processes of that as well. I think we'll see a continued trend for life sciences to want to support the global healthcare ecosystems as much as possible. And there's certainly opportunity for that in the digital space as well, and plenty of space for innovation. And my last one, perhaps more contentious, is that I think the AI bubble might die down a little bit in the next year. And we might see a trend more towards focus on that human centricity, as technology isn't going to save the healthcare industry, but humans using it just might.
Thank you, Rob. As ever, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
And that concludes another episode of the pharmaphorum podcast. You can find more information about this episode, including a download link and information about previous installments at pharmaphorum.com/podcasts. The pharmaphorum podcast is also available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, Pocket Casts, Podbean, and pretty much wherever else you download your other podcasts from. Just search for pharmaphorum and follow and hit subscribe. Of course, don't forget to visit our website itself, where you can sign up for daily and weekly news and analysis bulletins. And do follow us on Blue Sky and LinkedIn at pharmaphorum. That's all for now. Thank you for listening.